From the shoulder. You see somebody carrying it like this, it's working too hard. Doesn't have to. The weapon weighs 8 1/4 pounds, which is not very bad. A lot of people say, oh, that's pretty heavy, but it's not bad. It's very nicely balanced. The balance point being right there underneath the sight at the lower barrel band. If I want to let them be a little bit more relaxed, which I do, I'll give the command, order, arms. Drop the rifle down to their side, resting the butt on the ground. They relax a little more. Parade! Rest! Now those of you who've seen photographs from the Civil War period, see them stand like this a lot. You thought, well, I don't know why, but everybody seems to stand like that. That's why. This was parade rest. It was a very popular position, pose for which to have your photograph taken. And hey! Carry! Arms. Back to the carry. Most everything is done from the carry position. Arms. Port. Okay, now this is a fighting position. You'll notice it's also, the command is backwards. Everything else is something arms, but this is arms port. There's a reason I'll come to in a moment why it's different. From this position, if the bayonet's fixed, you can present the bayonet or the muzzle very easily, or you can present the butt for butt stroke. You know, it's a good combat position. Carry, arms. Now here's the reason why arms port is backwards. There's another command called support arms. Now y'all probably don't think the people in the South have an accent, but a lot of Yankees thought so. They hear an old sergeant say spoke arms or poke arms. It sounded a lot alike. It was confusing, so they reversed arms port from support arms. Support arms. Now this was used for sentry duty. Now if you picture this with a bayonet, fairly impressive 18-inch bayonet on the end, this makes a very soldierly looking position. Now the bayonet was used for sentry duty and for crowd control. You can see it is a fairly intimidating piece, in addition to the weapon especially, when it's pointed in your general direction. Carry, arm. Order, arm. Now the bayonet is considerably longer than it needs to be for the average person. Could I have a volunteer? There we go. I want you to stand just like that and put this arm right straight up in the air. All right, here we go. All right, see that? Boy, that bayonet would go turn this way a little bit. I had to go through about 3 of him. Thank you very much. Now the reason was that this bayonet was not designed to kill people. It was not an anti-personnel weapon. It was an anti-cavalry weapon. You didn't kill a soldier, you killed his horse. If cavalry attacked infantry, the infantry formed a line like this. The front rank would kneel down, jab the butt of the rifle in the ground, brace it against the foot, and stand like, kneel like this. If there was a second rank, they'd come right up behind, stand right in the gaps, leaning forward like this. Now the horses would see this defensive bayonets and probably change their mind. If they didn't change their mind, the bayonet was long enough to reach deep into the vitals of the horse and kill it, strong enough that it wouldn't break off. If you look at photographs of the Army through history, you'll see that as long as there was horse cavalry, there were long bayonets. In the 1830s, when the horse kind of disappeared in favor of tanks, they went to short bayonets.
Used for killing them. Mommy.
All right, let's see. Carry arms. We wish to render honors as a group when the colors are raised or lowered, or if there's visiting dignitary, we go present arms. Much like today.
Sit down right here. Sit down.
Nice, flashy looking deal. Carry arms. Now, in addition to carry arms and arms port, when marching, the troops frequently used right shoulder arms. By rotating among them, you spared the weight. To carry arms, all the weight's on your right arm. It's starting to get tired hanging out here. So you got arms port for a while, balance point is here, your right arm gets to rest, your left arm gets to work. You get tired of that, you can go right shoulder, ho! Now, right shoulder arms is the next best thing to a punishment position. You got a lot of right angle bends in your arm, and although you carry some of the weight on your shoulder, still the kind of position if you're not enduring a little pain after 2 minutes, you're probably doing it wrong. Carry arms. Now we'll demonstrate the loading here, but we won't go through the fire. We'll demonstrate the loading and then do an about face and continue with the rest of it. Now this piece is called the 4570 or the trapdoor Springfield, the 1873 Springfield. It used a metallic cartridge. It was the first rifle that was generally issued here. It used a metallic cartridge.
He's not going to do anything.
You open the trapdoor, about.
No, they're not going to.
Hey! Load! See, they drop the rifle down, free up their right hand, open the trapdoor in the breech, insert the cartridge. When they come back to this position, it means everybody's loaded. At this point, you may have to give it ready.
They're not going to.
Full cock. Go ahead and lower your hammers, Joan. Aim! Fire! Volley fired. And then we're going to load. Load. And at this point, if I don't actually want them to go again, I can go carry arms. Order arms. Parade rest. Well, we're going to march off into the, can't be the sunset, but we're going to march off here in a minute for a little bit. So if y'all have any questions, this is a good time to ask. Otherwise, you're welcome to kind of watch us. We're going to do a little bit of marching drill, and then that'll pretty much be it.
How many cartridges?
2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right forward. 2, right.
No, we're not going to.
Carry arms. Right forward. 2, right. March. Go in. Go in. 1, 2, 3, 4. You land. Go in. Go in.
Mom, what are you doing? Can we take?
Right. Pay attention now. Right. Pace. Left. Rest.
You quit. You quit it.
Front.
Your hair. I know it's going to.
3 paces backward. March. Order. Parade. What we have here is the element of the United States infantry. king of battle. Infantry's the one that really carried things through. We have two more coming, they're like the cavalry. They like the dollar store. Okay, what we're going to do for you today is a little bit of demonstration. Turn around and face the other way, deploy into skirmish formation, fire some volleys, fire by file, and advance the skirmishers. The skirmishers were an idea that started during the Civil War. What people up north call the War of the Great Rebellion, and what I've heard down here referred to as the recent unpleasant. Most of the soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder like this at that time. But in an effort to get early warning, they would take a few soldiers and deploy them out in advance of the main company. The main unit was the regiment. They'd take one company or part of the company, deploy them out in extended order, spread out. So if the enemy attacked, they would be encountered by these people first. They would fall back on the main body and provide warning of this assault. The reason was that the rifle that was used back then was a pretty slow firing piece. It took a long time to reload. By our period, we've got a modern rifle. We'll be doing more with the rifle a little later on today at 2 o'clock. For those who like it. We'll be firing again at 2 o'clock. And this gave the infantry greater firepower. So you could spread out, get extended order, cover more of a front, and still do well in battle. This is called skirmish line, and almost all the combat in our period was done skirmish line. First, a little bit of manual of arms. And hut! This is the position of attention with the rifle at order arms. The weight of the rifle is on the ground and not on the soldier. A little bit more easy. Hooray! Hey! A little bit more relaxed position. We can get more relaxed in this, but I don't like to encourage you. Put and hut! Carry! Hug! Carry arms is one of the standard methods of carrying the rifle while you're marching. It's hanging from your shoulder, so the weight is from your shoulder and it makes it easier on your arm. It's also the standard position from which most of the other positions are drawn. Freezing! Hug! Salute by a group. Salute by the group. This is done for visiting dignitaries or for raising and lowering the colors and rendering honors as a unit. Carry, hug. Right shoulder, arm. And that's the method of carrying the rifle, which helps relieve the strain on your arm when you're marching. You're not carrying it the same way all the time as right shoulder arm. It has, however, a fairly uncomfortable position with right angle bends at the elbow and wrist. If you're not in pain within a couple of minutes, you're probably doing it wrong. Carry, hug. Arms, port. This is a fighting position. You notice their hands are grasping the piece tightly. They've got a good hold on it. They can either swing the muzzle around and present the muzzle with a bayonet, or they can step the other way and give the butt up, bring up the butt for a butt stroke. This is a combat position. You know, may have noticed also that the command was backwards. Instead of port arms, it was arms port. There's a reason. Carry, hard. The reason is there was another command called support arms. For a lot of the Yankees in the Army who didn't understand Southern dialect, poke arms and spoke arms sound too much alike. So they kept it as support arms, but went to arms port so there wouldn't be confusion. This was used frequently for sentry duty. And usually it was done with the bayonet fixed. We'll put this bayonet on this weapon and give you an idea of what it looked like when everybody had the bayonet fixed. The bayonet was a fairly psychologically intimidating weapon. Support! Hard!
You escape the bullet.
And when you've got a sentry standing like this man with rifle up to there and bayonet up to there, he gets your attention. Carry, hard. I need a volunteer. She was first. Now you notice how long this bayonet is. Notice how much longer stronger that bayonet is than it needs to be. We could put 2 or 3 of her on there. Thank you very much. The reason is the bayonet was not designed as an anti-personnel weapon. This was infantry's defense against cavalry. If cavalry attacked, the infantry would form a line. Demonstrate. Front rank, there were 2 ranks, would kneel down, plant the butt into the ground, brace it against their foot. There we go. And present a hedge of bayonets. Now, if the cavalry persevered in their charge, and the horses foolishly listened, the horses would run into the bayonet. It's long enough to pierce deep into a horse and kill it, and strong enough to not break off. And as long as, if you look at photographs, as long as there was horse cavalry, the infantry had long bayonets. And in the 30s, when the horse soldier disappeared, the bayonets shrank. Thank you very much. About. Yeah, go off. Pull him on lap. Go ahead, as you were. About. Hey! Down. We're going to move down a little bit and then deploy a skirmisher so everybody can see. We'll fire first 2 volleys. A volley fires where everybody fires together on my command. The goal there is when the enemy's a goodly distance away, they're not probably aiming at any specific enemy soldier. They're aiming at the mass or body of enemy troops. And you've got a lot of lead going down range, you're probably going to score some hits. As they get closer, as your enemy gets closer, you do not want to take the time, the dead time between shots to reload. You fire by file. The first round is neatly done right down the line. After that, they fire at will, but it's likely that you won't have everybody with an empty weapon. There'll be somebody shooting all the time. And then we'll fire while advancing. Right? Hey! Forward. Mark. Knee. Halt. Left. Close it up. Left. Pace. All right, now we've got a kind of restricted area.
What are you trying to do? Want to get down?
Take 1 pace. Let him get a whole step out, and then you step out. Okay? As skirmishers, by the left flank. Take interval. Arch.
No, he needs some of that one.
Halt. All right. Now this opens them up a little bit. Mike will take about 1 step that way. This opens them up a little bit. Now we'll go through the loading procedure to load the weapon. To load the weapon, you open this trap door in the breech and insert a cartridge. Close the trap door, piece is loaded and ready to fire. When you open it, it ejects the expended round, you're ready to reload. Load!
Stop screaming, Chad!
When everybody comes to this position, it means they're ready. I'm ready. All right. Ready! Hey!
I got the damn stunt thing. Now that's
But you can't go there and
Ready! Hey! Stop! Commence firing!
say, James?
Thank you, Daddy, for all the presents you gave me. Daddy!
We're going to pick up our brass because that costs money and I reuse it. Then we're going to advance and firewall advance. All right, has everybody got a live round loaded? No, not
Well, we'll then with the shooting. Okay. Sean, yours is upstairs.
everybody loaded? Number shares. Advance.
I love you, Daddy. Thank you for the presents, Daddy. See the tray? Sean put the angel on top this year. It's all right. Sean put the angel on top this year.
We're gonna go find her.
Pat, I got home when you left. You're right. Your father was there when you left. You're right. Sound off. 1, 2. Sound off. 3, 4. Come left. March. Left to the right.
Go ahead, play with the power swords at Daddy C. Move back into the dining room.
Firing these and the big gun at 2 o'clock. It's still warm, but sort of faded out. The uniforms we're going to talk about here were actually worn here at Fort McKavett, some of them, and certainly in Texas, because Texas was occupied all the way up till, well, it still is. I'm from Fort Hood. Indian Wars went on here. They had Indian War posts like this one, which were very active into the 90s. Let me tell you about some of the uniforms, and I'll do it in chronological order. First of all, let's talk about the uniforms during the Civil War. We have several examples here, which I want to show you different types, different ranks, different grades. First one I'll talk about is the private. I'll talk about private. This is your basic Civil War uniform that when you think of a Union soldier, this is what he'd be wearing. In this case, a corporal, because he has 2 stripes. A 4-button sack coat or fatigue jacket, a bummer's cap, loose-fitting cap on top of the head. He's carrying his banded musket. He's carrying the equipment he would need to fight in a day. In this case, it happens to be several accoutrements. He's got a canteen covered in cloth.
to keep the water and the canteen protected. Believe it or not, when you wet that the wool on the outside, it does keep the water cooler, believe it or not. He's got a knapsack. He's got it it's tarred to keep his food and whatever essentials he wants to carry with him. He's wearing a belt that has his percussion cap box on the front. He's got his bayonet, and he's got a cartridge box used to carry the rounds for his weapon. This is what your average soldier in Civil War looked like. Pretty much both sides, exception of course in coats and whatnot. Straight leg pants made out of 22-ounce wool kersey. Leather brogans, which believe it or not were made on a straight last. They didn't have a left or right foot. And during the Civil War, believe it or not, they used actual wooden pegs to hold the upper part of the shoe to the sole itself. And this was the uniform for the Army from about the year 1850s and the 50s up to year 1872. Okay, thank you. Now, of course, we have variations depending upon the grade. We have a resplendent example of an officer's kit from the Civil War. I'll let him explain a little bit about his coatee and the reason why he would wear variations of the uniform he has on.
This is a second lieutenant's uniform, United States Army or volunteer Army of the United States. I'm wearing kind of what they call an unbloused or casual officer's gear. This is called a roundabout or a short jacket. It normally would have been worn closed with the officer's sash. This is the sash, which is a traditional piece of equipment worn by officers to distinguish them from enlisted ranks. I'm in a casual affair, so I have put my sash underneath my coat and draped my coat over, which this was quite popular with brash young lieutenants in the Civil War. Usually you find short coats worn by lieutenants and captains, and occasional major, and of course some in the cavalry. Most senior officers would wear a frock coat. I'm wearing what they call the early war trousers, which are dark blue with a blue piping on it, which indicates infantry. During the war, they changed to sky blue trouser with a dark blue stripe indicate infantry. I've got a sword belt on, and left my sword off, I'm being captured. And on the back here was small, since I'm almost a non-combatant. I have a small revolver, just for protection. Officers had their choice of what kind of firearm they wanted to carry. Either the regular Army Colt, or in the case of this little thing, it's called a baby dragoon. And then behind that is a cartridge box, which you kept the rounds for that particular little piece. And I'm wearing, of course, a kepi instead of a fatigue cap. This is a cap worn for the officers. And as you look real closely, you'll see a pattern, curved pattern on this indicates with the one stripe making the cross that I'm a second lieutenant. Two stripes would be a captain, three stripes would be a major, four stripes would be a lieutenant. And that was
I also have it on very good faith. The lieutenant is a skilled percussionist, and if you stay here until 4 o'clock, you'll get a chance to see him exercise his skill at the music demonstration. Before we leave the Civil War, let me talk about one other Civil War uniform. This is the overcoat. It wasn't always warm. I'm from the East Coast, and I can tell you it doesn't stay warm there all the time. This is the overcoat that they wore. It's called a overcoat or greatcoat. Greatcoat because it has a cape. The cape is designed to keep you warm, but it also sheds water. You can sleep in this coat by taking the cape, either rolling it up for a pillow, or putting it over your head to keep the mosquitoes off you. And they would make a choice of either carrying this overcoat or a blanket sometimes. They'd roll the overcoat up and strap it over their shoulder like a sling, like the next soldier we're going to talk about. But this style of greatcoat remained very popular late 18th century up to the beginning of the 20th century. And in fact, if you go up to West Point today, they still wear a coat very similar to this, slightly different color. But sky blue greatcoat came in two styles, a longer one for the cavalry, so their wrists were covered in their hands because they're riding with a saddle. The infantry model here was slightly shorter cape. Okay? Notice he's also wearing a different style of hat. Not all soldiers wore the bummer's cap. He's wearing a campaign or fatigue hat, that depending upon what unit he was in, they would issue him this instead of the farmer's cap, fatigue cap. Everything else pretty much the same boots, same shoes. Okay. Now in 1872, the Army said, we're going to make some changes to our uniform. We have basic shoes, but the jacket is slightly different. 5-button jacket, and now has branch indicated on the sleeve and on the collar. In this case, the infantry. He's wearing a blue pipe jacket. If he, of course, is yellow, he'd be in the cavalry. He's wearing a different style fatigue hat. They started issuing what they call the Andrews period hat in 1872. Made a couple changes, but they had a black hat from that era all the way up till 1883 when they went to a tan hat. And this was very popular both with the infantry and cavalry. Most times in the movies you'll see just the cavalry wearing, but this was quite the vogue for the infantry as well. He's on wearing field gear. He's got a gutta-percha blanket, and he has inside of that his regular wool blanket to keep that dry. He can also use that for a poncho, keep himself dry, but mainly to keep his blanket dry, and then he can spread that on the ground for a ground cloth. This is what a soldier would have looked like if he was in the infantry out here in Texas on campaign. If he left a fort like this and he was going in the woods for a couple of weeks or months to go on campaign against various tribes. What I want to talk about is what the dress coat looked like for privates. And officers, I said, had a new dress uniform too. This was a jacket designed to be close-fitting, form-fitting, was designed to make soldiers look more military, more appealing. They figured it looked more appealing. Soldiers would want to join the Army, so they were going to put more money into the dress uniform. This dress coat is for a musician. The musician wore the distinctive herringbone pattern on the front of the jacket, and they wore a branch color based upon which musician's unit they're with. If this was a musician from the infantry, he'd wear a blue herringbone pattern on the front of his jacket. This case is for the cavalry. Slightly shorter coatees on the tails of this coat because they have to ride a horse while they're playing. Sometimes you would wear a helmet with this type of frock coat that would have long horsehair down, plumes hanging down from the back of that, and it had a spike similar to a German pickelhaube helmet. It was picked up from the Prussians or the French, and this was quite the rage all the way up to about 1900 where they switched helmets. An artilleryman. Can anyone tell me why he's an artilleryman? Yes, very good. He's wearing red. Now he also said because he loves it, and I can tell you that's the case for him. But this is a variation on a field uniform. Notice he's wearing everything red piping, red sergeant stripes, wearing the same type of fatigue hat. He's carrying various field weapons, though. He's carrying a sword. He would use that in close combat. He's carrying his own weapon, a pistol. Maybe he'd carry a rifle, maybe he wouldn't. And also notice he's wearing boots. If you're a light artilleryman, you'll be riding a horse because you'll be pulling the piece. And you need to wear boots to protect your legs while you're riding the caisson or the horse so that you don't get caught between two horses because they pull them in a team. So, same basic uniform, slight variations. Let me tell you about what happened during this era with several different types of clothing. First, let me go over my kit before we explain the overcoat. In 1883, they changed the style of the jacket. The Civil War soldier corporal can open his jacket. Notice our jackets are very similar, except when you open them up. They decided in 1883, instead of wearing the fatigue blouse, which was just one piece of material, they lined these jackets. Slightly different cut. Notice mine fits a little bit more evenly than his does. Slightly different collar, and it's got two pockets inside. They wanted to give these soldiers a piece of garment which was usable year-round, not just a piece of junk that could be worn out easily. They get one of these every 2 years. They also said instead of having a straight leg pants, they're going to make a curve in the pants. And if you notice, there was a slight flare on the bottom of my pants. That was called a spring in 1883. They said their pants were going to have a spring, and the intent was that it would ride more easily over the shoe or a boot. They'd also put a strap underneath the pants so that it would keep it, adhere it to the shoe when they were on a horse. Added a few more things like, I don't know what pockets do you have on your trousers? Texas, they gave them a buffalo coat, but when they started running out of buffalo, they said, fine, we're going to issue a coat which is more durable and can be worn over things. And this is one example. This is an 1883 canvas overcoat. It is blanket lined, actually lined with blanket material. This coat was very popular from 1983 to 1907. That's when they stopped issuing. It was worn, just as you've seen, long sleeves to cover the hands so you can keep warm, so you can ride a horse and your hands don't freeze. It wore the balaclava style cap. As you see, it has a brim you can flip down, and it had a very high collar to protect you from wind. Can you come up the collar? Look how high this collar is. Dracula would love to have a cape like this. And this was designed to be worn over multiple layers of clothing. Very popular jacket out west because the very thick canvas would block the wind. You put this coat up and you put that hat on, and you're very well protected. And this is what a lot of cavalrymen wore while on patrol. You won't see this in too many movies. One of these facts that doesn't reach the screen very often. Okay, thank you. The last uniform I want to show you in this parade of military uniforms is what they wore when they were on fatigue duty. Now the cavalrymen you see behind you wouldn't always wear the outfit they're wearing to do fatigue work or manual labor. In the morning, in a kit similar to this. In fact, this is a copy. This is from an 1883 pattern. It's called a stable frock. A jacket and trousers, which is over top of your uniform trousers. The intent was that they would use this kit about the year 1930. They started making them brown instead of white. But this was an issue uniform, and if you came on a post, say at 6 o'clock in the morning or at 1600 in the afternoon, 4 o'clock this morning, you'd see soldiers dressed similarly. Now I've taken you from the periods about 1850 running there. It wasn't until about 1903 they started issuing khaki, or the tan, and they went away from the resplendent blue uniforms that you see wearing. But this is a little bit of Army history I wanted to share with you, and we thank you for your attention. If you have any questions or...
What's that, the bracket?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Open the trap door mechanism in the back and insert a brass cartridge. Brass cartridge held 70 grains of black powder, 45 caliber, 405 grain bullet. This is the lead bullet about the size of my little finger from the knuckle to the tip. Loaded, inserted into the chamber. This is an empty round, don't worry. Round, and you're ready to reload. Give you a demonstration of the finish done without even volley fire. Volley! In addition, because the cartridge was the brass cartridge, the copper cartridge with powder and bullet already in it, you didn't have to worry about bad weather, rain, or anything of that nature. Left, right, right, right. Move back over here, front. The wheelie just a little bit. Right wheel, march, halt, right drift, front. We'll begin with volley fire. Volley fire was used when the enemy was a long ways away. The object was not to aim at a specific enemy, but rather at that body of troops. With the intention that at that long range, several of the bullets that are fired will hit. One blank round, load!
This is the one, ma'am, you may want to hold your ears on.
Okay. Ready?
Ready! Hey! March! Ready! Hey! March!
Sounds like eggs.
Ready!
Here we go.
Fire off ball from the right! Commence fire!
dog spot down.
Are y'all coming?
Harpo, you can watch that segment out.
You're fine right there.
Oh, okay.